All right. Hi, everyone. As Liz said, my name is Mike Gilbert, and I'm a NetSuite consultant here at Sikich. And I'm hoping after this presentation, you can have learned a little bit something more about reporting in NetSuite. So we're going to go over reports and save searches, and then we're going to actually go into NetSuite, and I'll show you some reports, a simple save search, and then a more complex save search. And then we will have a Q&A if you guys have any questions. So let's jump right into it and get started. So fundamentally, every ERP on the market really does the same thing. You input data into your system, and then the system stores your data. But one of the things that separates NetSuite from the rest is when it is time to retrieve your data. So since it's an integrated ERP system, you not only have a variety of different tools to retrieve that data, but it's very simple and easy to do so also. So the two main tools to retrieve your data in NetSuite are reports and saved searches. Reports allow you to present your data in a very organized manner, making it very easy to analyze. So think financial statements, your general ledger, data that you may want in a specific format. And in NetSuite, you have dozens of pre-built out-of-the-box reports, but you can also customize these reports with the Report Builder tool. And you can also save reports you've customized, export them to Excel or as a PDF or a CSV. You can print or you can email them directly from the actual report page. And then you can also set them to be emailed out on a scheduled basis. And now, a saved search is used more when the data you're searching for is very specific. So, for example, if I wanted to view all of the transactions that were processed by a specific employee of mine, I'd create a search that would look through all of my transactions, and then based on whatever criteria or filters I put on the search, I'll have a list of that specific data set. And then just like reports, you can print them, email, schedule, and export this data set. But another cool thing you can do with save searches is you can choose to have it sent out whenever my data is updated. So if after I created that saved search, the employee processing my transactions search, if any of those lists or if any of those pieces of data on that search are updated, or let's say right after I create the search, that employee processes another transaction, then that entire save search will automatically be sent out via email once that record is updated. And that's really why saved searches are referred to as a live data set, because they are automatically updated after you initially set it up. And another benefit of saved searches is that you can link and display them to your dashboard in a variety of different ways, with KPIs, trend graphs, things like that. So now let's actually go into NetSuite. I'm going to open up the program. And first thing I want to do is take a look at an income statement. As you can see, there are quite a few out-of-the-box reports. Now, with the income statement, the first thing that I notice immediately is that it looks really nice with how it segments all of my accounts. I can very easily collapse them, or if I'd like, I can go down to the bottom right here, collapse all of them at once, or slowly expand them level by level. I can also choose to open up a bar graph based on my income statement. I can export to Excel as a PDF, CSV, Word, and then here I can also choose to print the income statement or email it on a scheduled basis. So this is a pretty decent looking income statement, I think, but if I want to customize it even further, I can do so with the available filters section at the bottom. So here I can obviously choose what date range I like for my income statement. I can also choose the specific subsidiary that I want if I want to consolidate my financial statements. But one of the cool things I want to show you is this column filter. Here you can very easily segment your financial statements or any reports really with any of your segments that you have in your system, as well as your accounting periods. So I'm going to choose department, and once I refresh the income statement, you'll see that very quickly I can see my detailed income statement for each individual department that I have within my organization. I can also choose to drill into the report, and I'll see what specific transactions are making up that individual line of the invoice. And then I can go one further and actually drill into the individual invoice. Let's go back. And as you can see, the out-of-the-box reports can be really useful, and it's pretty simple to customize. But if I want to customize them even further, you click the Customize button down here, and I'll be taken to the Report Builder tool. So the Report Builder tool is made up of a few main sections up here. Let's go to the first one, Edit Layout. This is where you choose to customize your rows that make up your report. So with this tool, I could change the layout of my financial statements if your organization needs a little more of a customized income statement or balance sheet. Now the next section, Edit Columns. This allows you to customize the columns of your report. So you add the fields, which are the columns on the left. And when I choose financial fields, you see the amount field. That's what I already have. Let's add date. And very quickly, I'll preview the report. And you can see now I have specific dates for each line of my income statement. Now the next section, filters. This is where I can add ways to filter the report after I've already run it. And that's what I showed you guys before with the segments or with dates or with your subsidiaries. We aren't using the sorting section over here, but you can have your report sorted a certain way so it's displayed a certain way when you open it. And then the More Options section, this is basically just general preferences of the report. So I can choose my drill down report. I can choose the specific audience or who I want to access the report, just basic general preferences. And now let's take a look at one more report. I have it saved to my shortcuts. I'm going to open the AR aging summary. And so this is showing all of the open balances per client. But right now this is looking like a little too much for me. It's a little overwhelming. And what if I want to see maybe clients that have balances over 500,000, only those clients? So I could scroll down, I could sort through them, I could even export it to Excel and put on filters that way and find my data. Or I could simply create a saved search. already created this saved search, and I'll open it up and show you guys how it works. It's called AR Open Balance Greater than 500,000. And now as soon as I click on the link, I'm taken to the results of it. And you can see that this saved search is made up of different columns, and each of these columns are a field in NetSuite. And I'll explain that further once we actually go into the report. But you can see this is our data set. Let's edit the search. And the first thing when you're creating a new search that you need to do is you need to decide what type of search you're making. So you can see at the top up here, this is a client search. Now, if I'll show you real quick, actually going to a new saved search, actually let's do it through this. Oh no, so as you guys can see, the mouse that I'm using is extremely sensitive. So please bear with me. Got it. So here is where you start creating a saved search. And if I wanted to search for a list of accounts, I would choose an account type search. If I wanted to choose if I wanted to search for contacts, I would choose a contact search. If I wanted to search for an invoice or a sales order or a purchase order, those would all be transactions. So I would choose a transaction type search. And this is just the first step of making the saved search, basically telling NetSuite what or where specifically the program needs to look to find your data set. So this is a client saved search. And if you're having a hard time deciding what type of search you're creating, just think about where the thing that you're searching is stored in the database. So for this example, I'm looking for the balance field, and I know that the balance field is found on the client record. And I'll actually go to a client record to illustrate that. Over in the financial subtab, you see the balance field on the client record. This is how I know I'm doing a client saved search. And so now that we have our type of saved search, the next step is to set the criteria of the search. So initially, the search is querying every single client in the database. But as you can see, I've applied the balance filter to the search, and I set it to be greater than 500,000. So now we are only getting the clients that have a balance greater than 500,000. I also set the inactive field to false, so that basically what this is saying is that we will not get any inactive clients in our search, because that is not something I want to see in my data set. Now that we have our filters, our criteria set, let's head over to the results. So at this point, the search already knows what data to retrieve from NetSuite. So now that it knows what the data is, we need to decide how we want to display this data. And that is the results subtab. So down here in the columns section, this is the columns of the results of our report that I showed you before. And what these are all of the different fields that are related to the specific record that you're searching. So since this is a client search, these are all of the fields in NetSuite, custom or standard that are related to the client record. So I put the name, the subsidiary, the balance, status. Here you can choose to summarize your data in a specific way. So if I want to only show the average of all of the open balances, or I could sum all of the balances. In this column, you can choose specific functions like date functions here, like displaying the month or displaying the day or the calendar week. Or I can choose to round my balance to the hundredths. You can also choose here to create specific formulas for your data, and I'll show you some of those in the next Save Search that we go over. Then I can customize my labels as well. Up here, I can choose how I want my data to sort as soon as I open it. So right now, it's going to be in alphabetical order. Then over in the next section, the highlighting subtab, I can choose to highlight text based on certain conditions that I choose. So I think what I'll do is choose the name field. And now, whenever the name field has the keywords Sikich, I'm going to set it so that the text is a different color. I think I'll set it so the text is blue. All right. Make sure you add it. Now let's go to the next section, Available Filters. This is the section where you can filter your data after you've already run it. So a good one I like to add is subsidiary for this search. And then I need to check the Show in Filter region checkbox. I can also choose the audience of my search, choose specific roles that can see it and can't see it. Here's where I can schedule emails for this search. This is the checkbox that I mentioned before. Send email alerts when records are created or updated. So this search can be automatically sent out when records from the search are updated. Here I can view the audit trail to see who's been messing with my search, as well as who's been running it. And so now let's run the search and take a look at our results. And so after only a few minutes, we already have our data set. You can see up here we have the subsidiary available filter that I mentioned before. So I can segment this down to only certain pieces of data. Sikich is nicely highlighted. And like I said, after only a few minutes, we have our data set. When you hear the word query, at least I think immediately something that requires technical knowledge. But as you can see, with a little practice, I think any user can have success using saved searches. And now let's actually, on that note, get a little more technical and move on to the advanced saved search. So I'll open this up. And what this search is going to display is invoices in the system that are overdue. And so let's back up for a second and talk about saved searches at a high level. So just like a SQL query, the saved search is a query of NetSuite's database. So visualize the data in the database as a huge collection of tables. There is an invoice table where all the fields on the invoice are stored. There's a customer table where all the fields on the customer are stored. And that's why you have to start out your saved search by choosing the type, because a transaction saved search and a customer saved search are going to be querying different tables within the system. So I've opened up my search, and here I have all my columns of data. This is the name of the client that is on each of these invoices. I have my document number, the specific amount, and notice these two columns on the right. I'll explain them further, but basically what they are is that the priority level column, I created a case statement so that every time an invoice is more than 30 days overdue, it is a high priority. And then here, this is the open balance field that we were looking at before from the client record. And I ran a single join, and I'll explain that a little bit as I edit the search. But this is showing data from the client record, even though this is an invoice or a transaction type search. So now I'll edit the search, and again, notice how this is a transaction type search. So the first thing you need to do when you're running a transaction type search is set type as a filter, and then choose what type of transaction you're searching for. So here I'm searching for invoice. That's what I selected. But if I wanted to search for a bill or a cash sale or a check, here's where I would search it. And you can also search multiple transactions within one search. This next filter is a fundamental reporting concept in NetSuite. So I've set the main line is equal to true. And what that means, I'll go to an invoice record to explain this. So within NetSuite, main line refers to the header level of a transaction, so the total. And then the opposite of mainline would be the columns of the data. So if you're creating a saved search and you want to search for the total of the transaction, then you would set mainline is equal to true. If you want to dig in a little deeper and you want your search to find the individual lines of the transaction, then you would set the main line is equal to false. And then you can also set the main line is equal to either, so that you're searching both the header and the line level of the transactions. Just to make my data set smaller, I set the date filter to within this year to date. And as you can see, there are quite a few date options that you can choose, just like anywhere in NetSuite. And then the last filter I have is days overdue is greater than 0. So now let's take a look at the results of this search. So you can see down here, I've created a case statement for the search, and I kept it pretty simple. When the days overdue field is greater than 30, then that last column, or the second to last column, will display the text high priority. Otherwise, it will be null. And then the last field down here is another interesting feature that I mentioned before. Again, the reason you need to specify which type of search, like transaction or client, is so that NetSuite knows what tables to look at. Because even though the saved search is a query, it is a little more limited than a large query tool such as SQL, because within NetSuite, it doesn't allow you to do multiple joins of tables. So that's why you need to specify what the type is. However, it does allow for single joins of tables. So here, I selected for the client, and then actually you scroll down all the way to the bottom and find these fields with the dots. And that's how you know that you are going to be joining a table. So what I did is I looked for the client mainline fields. And now I'm no longer looking at the fields of the transaction table. I'm looking at the fields of the client table. So I think I had balance, right? Let's put that up. And I also customized my labels here. So let's run this again. Take a look at our data once again. So you can see how this would be useful to join a related table, but a different table, because now not only can I see all of the invoices that are owed to me, 119 days, come on guys, get it together, but I can also see that they really have 4 times that as their open balance also. So this is a demo account. We really need to work on collecting our payments. So that really concludes my presentation. I'll pull my PowerPoint back up. But really all I have for you guys is this last slide that says questions. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to type them into the box.
Thanks, Mike. That was great. If anyone does have any questions, we have a few more minutes, so you can type them into the chat box, and we'll try to address them now. And if we can't now, we can certainly follow up with the group in an email. So
I see that Heidi had one question. She asked, there are multiple choices of name. Could you go over some of the name fields? I often choose the wrong name field, and the search result is empty. So that's a very good question. And let me go back into NetSuite. So what Heidi's asking is that when you are trying to find a certain field here, depending on the record, there can be quite a few fields that, right here there's only one name, but sometimes other searches or reports have multiple different fields that are called a name. And really, there is no great way to look through this large list of fields other than scrolling through it. But one thing I kind of like to do to work around that is when I'm first running a search, I'll add several different fields. So let's say these are all the different name fields, and I'm not exactly sure what the correct one I'm looking for is. I'll just add like 6 or 10. You can really add an unlimited amount of fields here. So I'll just add as many as I think might be important for me to see, and then I'll run the search. And then I can see that, you know, this is a completely empty data set. I don't need this at all, same as this. But maybe I do like this one. Now I go back to edit my search, and I specify which ones I want to see and which ones I don't want to see. Does anyone else have any more questions?
all right. Well, thank you everyone who joined. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with a copy of this recording. If you think of any questions that happen to arise a few minutes after the webinar, please feel free to shoot me an email, and we'll be able to address those questions right away.
Do not hesitate to ask further questions on this stuff.
All right. Well, if anyone else doesn't have any questions, thank you all for joining, and we hope that you will join the the upcoming SUITE Series Live webinars. We'll be hosting 6 or 7 more for the fall going into 2018. So be sure to check your emails and make sure that you're registering for all the upcoming ones. So thank you all, and thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks everyone.
Bye.